What's up, everybody? And today we're checking out how an F-15 landed without a wing. Let me just repeat that for a second. How an F-15 landed without a wing. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I've heard of this story before, but I don't know what actually happened apart from the fact that an F-15 landed without a wing. So we're going to check out Sandbox. The amount of times I get recommended this YouTube channel, Sandbox, I am going to leave a link down below to Sandbox, and specifically to this video that I'm watching. Go over there, give it a like, give it a subscribe, all that good stuff, because the last video I watched of Sandbox was genuinely really, really good. So go check it out. If you haven't already, check this out. 16,534. You can't see it because I'm wearing green. There's green behind me. There's green everywhere. It's my favorite color. Where are we? Look, there you go. Put my notebook in front of it. You can see it. Isn't that crazy? The goal was to raise £15,000. And this movement that we've done, having a drink that is good for you, it's energizing, it's got functional mushrooms in it, it's genuinely really powerful, and taking the profits of that drink and using them to get people outside more. That's it. It's so simple. That's it. We've seen other businesses do this before, like Red Bull or Monster, where they take their profits and they sponsor extreme sports, which are really cool. We want to take it and sponsor outdoor activities. It's literally that simple. And people love this idea, so much so that the Kickstarter has absolutely blown up, which is blowing my mind. So thank you. It ends on Saturday. We're going to be going live tomorrow night, Thursday night. We're going to play some video games. We're going to have some fun, maybe watch some funny military fail videos. We're going to have a good laugh. We're going to be dropping into Verdansk with the boys. And then on Saturday, we're going to have an end of Kickstarter stream, and it's going to be a ton of fun. Be really good. Also, check out Morale Chug if you haven't already. Look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. If you want to drink your Morale out of something genuinely really good, look, studded bottom, waterproof handle, free customization, insulated mug, handmade here in the UK by a small business, and you get 10% off. Link down below. You also get a free bag. They're unbelievable. They're so cool. They're legitimate. Imagine your mate rocking up for a beer and you're handing one of these with a beer in it. They'll be coming over every day. All day. Who's watched New Girl? I've got way too much energy. I drank a whole cup of matcha. I don't drink coffee, guys. In fact, I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. So I just necked a whole cup of matcha, and I think I've had about 300 milligrams of caffeine, and I am wired off my tits. Let's watch this. Boom, boom. I love Sandbox. Go on, lad. Go on, lad. Love me some Sandbox. Am I quiet? I'm not quiet.
Despite entering service nearly a half-century ago, the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle remains one of the most potent and capable air superiority fighters on the planet.
Pure aggression, the F-15. Pure power. Unlimited power. They're amazing. They're legitimately incredible aircrafts.
The Eagle may not be as technologically advanced as its fifth-generation stablemates, the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
It doesn't need to be.
In stealth, the F-15 makes up for in classic Cold War style, with incredible engineering and good old-fashioned brute force.
It's like the difference between a Tesla and a classic Ford Mustang. Like, yeah, it might not have all that. Well, actually, no, because a Tesla. Well, no, a Mustang's probably quicker than a Tesla in the long run. Acceleration, probably not. But what I'm saying is, it's just pure power and engineering, whereas the newer stuff is very technical, isn't it? Like, if you were just doing a dogfight, if you were in a regular dogfight, like, you could handle yourself in an F-15. I mean, I couldn't. I'm a former Royal Marines commando, not a pilot. Do you know what I mean?
In fact, this aircraft is so capable and powerful that a pilot once flew an F-15 10 miles and successfully landed it, all after losing the aircraft's entire right wing.
That is insane.
Which brings us back to brute force, because it was, in no uncertain terms, considered a necessity for the Air Force as it pursued development on what would become America's Eagle in the 1960s.
What a great bit of kit.
Much of the 50s and the better part of the 60s, it wouldn't have been unfair to say that the Soviet Union was winning the Cold War. The space race to that point had been practically one-sided.
Yeah, so the space race was mostly the Soviet Union winning it until we landed on the moon, which is crazy. So yeah, I can see that they were scrapping to try and get something to get one over them, weren't they?
with the Soviets being the first to put satellites, animals, and people into orbit, as well as the first to reach the Moon, Venus, and Mars with probes.
Yeah.
In the skies over Earth, Soviet fighters were among the best in the world. The sweep-wing MiG-23 was widely considered to be superior to America's workhorse F-4 Phantom, but even more pressing was the Soviet MiG-25. When the Pentagon first got wind of the MiG-25 Foxbat back in 1970, the aircraft's large wing area, coupled with two powerful-looking engines, suggested to intelligence analysts that it was probably a highly capable air superiority fighter. Those fears were exacerbated.
Which one was that Soviet aircraft again that everyone was worried about and it ended up just being a nothing burger? The one that there was a pilot who flew one, who basically abandoned their military and flew one to our allied place, and we managed to get a hold of it. We found out that, yeah, it's really fast, but it's just absolutely dreadful. What was that aircraft, that Soviet aircraft? I can't remember what it was. Someone will let me know in the comments.
In March of 1971, when Israeli radar operators picked up an unusual Soviet aircraft traveling at an astonishing Mach 3.2.
Maybe it's this one.
At altitudes higher than the F-4 or even the Soviet MiG-23 could manage. Months later, the aircraft returned and Israeli intercept fighters tried to shoot it down. But it just blew by at better than Mach 3, with the air-to-air missiles detonating safely behind it. Armed with
I think this is the aircraft it's talking about.
Their limited understanding of what this new Soviet superjet was, the Air Force redoubled their efforts to field a purpose-built dogfighter that could actually stand toe-to-toe with what we perceived this Foxbat to be.
Yeah.
Within just 5 years of those intercepts, the F-15 Eagle would enter service, with that new MiG set squarely in its sights. It could fly at speeds in excess of Mach 2.5, thanks to a pair
Mach 2.5. What an absolute beast. Like, people don't realize how fast that is.
of powerful Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220 afterburning turbofans that actually produce more thrust than the aircraft's drag and weight combined to. In other words, the F-15 is so powerful that it can actually accelerate while flying straight up. That high
It's basically a rocket. It's just a rocket with wings, and we pretend that it's a jet. That's what it is.
thrust-to-weight ratio, coupled with a low weight-to-wing area, also allows for a high degree of maneuverability, making for what the Air Force hoped would be a superior combination of traits when compared to the admittedly faster Soviet powerhouse MiG-25. But just a few years later, the United States would finally get their hands on a MiG-25, thanks to defecting Soviet pilots.
This is it. So it was the MiG-25. This guy defected, and we got our hands on the MiG-25, and it ended up being an absolute nothing burger. Isn't that insane? What a crazy story. Like, they've got this aircraft. It's so mysterious. It's incredibly fast. Everyone's panicking. And then we get one and we're like, oh, it's not that good, really.
Pilot Flight Lieutenant Viktor Ivanovich Belenko, who delivered the MiG-25 to a Japanese airstrip and showed the world that the frightening Foxbat wasn't actually all that frightening after all.
Yeah.
It was indeed incredibly fast, but all that speed had come as a result of numerous design compromises. And in fact, the MiG-25 was never even an air superiority fighter to begin with. It was really an intercept platform, designed specifically to close with American bombers quickly, not for acrobatic dogfights against other jets. And in the years that followed, as you might expect, this F-15, which was an aircraft designed to compete with an imagined air dominance fighter without equal, went on to devour its competition in fight after fight, scoring many of its wins at the hands of America's allies.
How many F-15s are still in use today? Let me Google it. How many F-15s still in service? Let's have a look here. So the US Air Force, when was this article done? March 2025. Okay, so quite relatively new. Well, it is new. It was last month. But we don't know exactly, do we? Because it'll never be We may never have the exact numbers, but it says the US Air Force still has 357 in service. The Israeli Air Force has 33. The Japan Self-Defense Force actually has 155. South Korean Air Force has 59. Qatar Emirate has 8. The Royal Saudi Air Force has 210. And then the Singapore Air Force has 40. Which is insane, isn't it, really? So there, if you add all them numbers up, you're looking at, what, 400, 500, 6, 7, 800-ish still in service today around the world. 800-ish. Obviously, it's going to be starting to dwindle, isn't it? It's coming to the end of its life. But, my God, what a career it's had.
Places like Israel. In fact, the very first air-to-air kill in an F-15 was logged by an Israeli in 1979.
Wow.
And since then, Israeli pilots have racked up no fewer than 60 more shoot-downs from the cockpits of Eagles.
Whoa.
But the most incredible thing an Israeli pilot may have ever pulled off with a venerable F-15 came in 1983, when pilot Ziv Nadavi and instructor Yehor Gal managed to land the top-tier fighter after losing its entire right wing in a mid-air collision. That incredible story takes place on May 1st of 1983, where elements of the Israeli Air Force's 106th and 116th squadrons took to the skies over the Negev Desert for a training engagement that would pit 2 new F-15Ds against 4 older A4N Skyhawks.
Interesting,
It was
okay.
an airfield defense exercise, with the F-15s playing the role of defenders, and the A4s serving as aggressors.
Yeah, so typical exercise, nothing crazy going on. But why did it lose a wing? Like, what? That's quite a big thing to happen, isn't it?
The Skyhawks were dated attack aircraft, each of which would pose little threat to an F-15 in a one-on-one fight, but they had both numbers and experience on their side. At the stick of one of the 2 Eagles was Nadavi, a pilot who was still training to fly the powerful new F-15 under the tutelage of Gal, who was an experienced F-15 pilot riding in the back seat.
Quick question again about the F-15. How expensive was the F-15? Let me find this out real quick. The original 1976 unit flyaway cost of an F-15 was around 10.5 million. That's it? 10.5 million? It's a lot of money, but it's nowhere near compared to like an F-35. Also figured at $27.2 million in the 1998 simoleon, whatever that means. Let's have a look here. Originally, the F-15 was supposed to cost less than 80 million. Oh, so is that wrong? Maybe that's wrong. But in 2023, Boeing walked back their initial cost estimates after signing a contract with the Air Force for 48 F-15EXs. Boeing said that the cost per jet would be about 90 million, more than 10% higher than originally estimated. So is that just what they are now? Or is this because it's the new EX variant? Someone will have to let me know in the comments. Obviously, when it first came out in the 80s, early 90s, when they were first kind of around, I'm sure they were significantly cheaper than what they are now.
At the time, the F-15 was still a flashy new ride, having just entered service in the United States in 1976 and Israel the following year. But the aircraft's chops were already firmly established. And in fact, the F-15 Nadavi was flying was already known within the Israeli Air Force as Baz, or Falcon 957, which had scored an impressive 4 kills against MiGs a year prior in the Lebanon War. Now, here in the United States, pilots training against one another are required to maintain what's known as a safety bubble. This 500-foot or more bubble, with quotation marks around it, is maintained around each aircraft to ensure collisions don't occur during the...
I need to watch Top Gun Maverick again. Also, shout out to Iceman, who unfortunately passed away today. I'm pretty sure he passed away today or last night. Unfortunately, age 65. I need to do another watch through of Top Gun Maverick, because that film is unbelievable, isn't it? Which he's actually isn't he in Top Gun Maverick? I'm pretty sure he's in it. I'm pretty sure he's like one of the really high officers in it. I'm not sure how he died, but I think he died today or yesterday, 2nd of April. Yeah, an hour ago it was announced, so maybe it was last night or something that he died of pneumonia in Los Angeles. That's really sad.
High-speed maneuvering that's just inherent to dogfighting, or as pilots tend to call it, while executing
Wow. Gotta get that dad sneeze out, Anna. Do you know what I mean?
basic fighter maneuvers. No aircraft should ever enter into another aircraft safety bubble, and if one does, you'll usually see the training exercise stopped. As these two Israeli F-15s swung into action against their A4 aggressor opponents, the reason for this training safety bubble becomes pretty apparent, because it wasn't long before the Skyhawks and Eagles were all screaming through the sky, each jockeying for position and looking for a decisive kill. After a great deal of maneuvering, the number 3 Skyhawk with the tail number 374 was ready to strike, targeting Nadavi's wingman and the other F-15. Unbeknownst to that Skyhawk pilot, however, Nadavi's Baz 957 was positioned just above and behind him, prepared to fire his own notional missiles.
Okay.
As the Skyhawk pilot attempted to lock onto the other F-15, he inverted his aircraft and began to climb, unaware that Nadavi's F-15 was flying directly above him by then. The two jets collided, with the Skyhawk impacting the F-15 right where its right wing met the fuselage.
Okay, so this makes me... God, that's a really bad accident within a training exercise, isn't it? But it makes me wonder what happened to the other guy.
A4 came apart almost immediately after impact, allowing just enough time for its pilot to eject safely.
Oh, okay.
The F-15 had lost its entire wing and immediately went into a downward spin.
Shit.
As Nadavi attempted to regain control of the fighter, his instructor, Gal, told him to prepare to eject as soon as it was stabilized enough to do so. In the chaos, neither knew the extent of the damage to their F-15.
Right.
I'm going to quote Nadavi here. Quote, "I opened afterburner, which is a totally opposite instinct when you're spinning toward the ground. Then the roll slowly stopped, and I slowly was able to bring the nose back up."
Jeez, that just shows the power of it, doesn't it? Christ.
Though Nadavi was technically the
Like, he brought it back up. It has a missing wing. That must have just been pure power to bring you back. It's a rocket. It's basically a rocket.
In this setting, he was actually senior in rank to his instructor, and maybe that's why, when he opted not to punch out, he didn't get any argument. And as the plane leveled out under afterburner, he and Gal looked over their right shoulders to see a wall of fuel vapor pouring out of the wing area. The fuel cloud was so dense that neither could actually see past it to see the extent of the damage to the aircraft. With things feeling somewhat stable, Nadavi tried to reduce his speed and put the aircraft right back into a spin. And that's when Nadavi made a decision. He knew that he was only about 10 miles away from an airstrip, so he chose to lean into the afterburners once again. Now, these afterburners were capable of increasing the output of each engine on the F-15 from 14,590 pounds of force to a whopping 23,770.
Oh my days.
Pouring out from the wing of the aircraft and the twin Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220s dumping the rest into the burn, it was a gutsy call. But it managed...
Yeah, he must have been losing fuel at an astonishing rate. Now, he's only 10 miles away. Like, he mustn't have had that much range in him to be able to get this back.
To level the aircraft out and get them pointed in the right direction. What Nadavi and Gal still didn't know was that their midair collision with the Skyhawk had actually sheared off their entire right wing.
It didn't mention the other guy ejected. He said safely ejected. I'm presuming the other guy survived and he was okay as well, because an accident like that is just... Like, all these pilots, people playing enemy and people playing defense, like, they will all know each other. They'll all be friends, right? So it could be quite devastating to find out what happened to your mate after all this. They probably don't even know. They're probably thinking, shit, like, did he even eject correctly? Is he okay? Is he safe? I guess you can't really be thinking about that stuff at this moment. They've just got to get home safe, haven't they?
And with 10 miles to cover and little more than fuel vapor left in the lines, The two men were attempting to do the impossible. They were flying an F-15 with just one wing.
That's
In
insane.
order to keep the aircraft stable, Nadavi had to maintain that high airspeed, which made touching down a difficult proposition. He knew that the recommended airspeed for landing an F-15 was right around 130 knots, or just shy of 150 miles per hour. As he lowered his tailhook and brought the F-15 down to the tarmac, they were actually flying at close to 260 knots, or right around
Jesus.
300 miles per hour. I'm going to quote Nadavi again here. I was landing at approximately twice the normal landing speed. I put the tailhook down, and there was a cable about a third of the way down the runway, and it went into that cable.
Okay, so it was quite a chaotic landing then. He didn't just take the wing off and just, flew back down and landed it safely. It was quite a chaotic moment and obviously incredibly dangerous.
The tailhook Nadavi hoped would slow their landing was ripped off the aircraft almost instantly.
Holy shit.
And for a split second, it seemed like their miraculous flight was all for nothing. The barricades at the end of the airstrip were fast approaching, and according to Nadavi, they stopped maybe 20 feet short of them.
Holy
And as he tells
shit.
it was only then, as he turned to shake hands with his instructor Gall, that he finally saw the real extent of the damage. The right wing of the aircraft hadn't been present for the last 10 miles of that flight. And while McDonnell Douglas was certainly already aware that their F-15 was an incredibly capable platform, even they were reluctant to believe that Israeli aviators had managed to fly one without a wing.
Like, imagine that report after that. Because obviously they would have had to give a massively extensive report. The black box from the aircraft would have been sent for testing to find out exactly what was going on. Like, the amount of admin that would have happened after this accident would be, quite substantial. I'd love to have been in one of the most important rooms in the military, maybe the Air Force room in the US, when they found out about this. They sit all the officers down, some of the high-ranking officers. By the way, we got this report. In Israel, they were doing a training exercise. There was a collision with a new F-15, and you can imagine this officer's thinking, oh my God, what happened? Is the craft recovered? Did he get into enemy hands? Like, what's going on? No, he flew it with one wing and landed it. Could you imagine the amazement? Can you imagine the amazement of the engineers who built this thing when they found out that this happened? They must have felt incredible.
Upon receiving word of the miraculous flight, they sent a team to Israel to
Yeah.
inspect the aircraft and see for themselves. I'll quote Nadavi one last time. Their first inclination was that it was a taxiing accident. It couldn't happen in the air. It was only
Yeah.
when they went to analyze and said, okay, the F-15 has a very wide body. If you fly fast enough, you're like a rocket. You don't need wings.
That's
And if that ending
insane.
isn't incredible enough,
That
you
is
should know
insane.
that very same F-15, Boz 957, was repaired and returned to service. And
Wow.
2 years later, it would score yet another kill
What?
against a Syrian MiG-23.
I hope, is that the one? Is this the one, the 957? I wonder where that is. I'd love to go see that aircraft. What a legendary aircraft.
And that's usually when I say that about does it for another edition of Sandbox News. But this week, I want to take a quick minute to tell you about some really good guys who made an awesome movie. Now, we don't have any paid sponsors here at Sandbox News, but I had a chance to sit down with movie star Max Martini this week.
Okay.
You might know him from movies like Pacific Rim, 13 Hours, or Sergeant Will Gardner. And he's got a crazy new movie coming out that features a bunch of veterans in front of and behind the camera.
Okay.
The movie stars and was co-written by Mike Carey and Marine veteran Chris Margettis, alongside guys like Navy SEAL Dave Meadows and Army vet and former UFC champ Randy Couture.
What, the
movie
fighter?
is called The Manson
What?
Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre.
Oh
and
my
it looks
God.
like exactly the sort of escapism we could all use as of late. So I'm going to close on a word from the man himself, Max Martini, who's the kind of movie star who genuinely looks out for vets. And
Do you know what? I fucking love this. I love this. Vets supporting each other. Here on YouTube, right? It is a dog-eat-dog world on YouTube when it comes to any content. And us veterans have to stick together. 5 years I've been doing this on YouTube now, and for the most part, in fact, up until the past couple weeks, I've never had someone turn around to me and be like, don't watch my military content on your channel, because everyone loves to support each other. I'm a vet. I'm usually watching channels made by veterans supporting military affairs, right? This is a really close-knit community. I've been in contact with loads of other military members who make YouTube channels, like Gendic Commando, used to be called, Ryan, and like the Fat Electrician. Like, I've spoke to a lot of these people, and for the most part, we want to help each other. The other week, though, there was a YouTube channel, a military YouTube channel that is just taking off right now. I had a video of theirs up, a few videos of theirs up recently, and you get an email for the first time in 5 years saying, take this down or I'm going to do further legal action, which has never happened in 5 years. And so when you see channels like this, right, Sandbox, and other channels that are incredible, like Task and Purpose and the Fat Electrician, and all these military YouTube channels who really do look after each other, share the love, man. Like, seeing this is obviously a movie made by vets. There was another movie recently made by Royal Marines. We've got to share that love. We've got to stick together and help each other, because, to be fair, a lot of the governments that we fight for, a lot of the countries we fight for, don't even look after us. I know the British government didn't look after me when I left the Royal Marines, and I know there's a lot of vets in America who feel the same way about their government. And so the only people who can look after each other is ourselves. So if you're any vets out there, you know, if you're any other YouTube channels, Sandbox, if you're watching this, I don't know if you're made by vets or whether you're just interested in this genre. We've got to stick together, man. There was another channel as well that copyright claimed a bunch of content recently, but I think it was because they just sold their channel. So that's a bit different. But we've got to look after each other, man.
Who remembers the names of internet nobodies like me. So I'll see you guys next week, and here's Max.
How you doing? This is Max Martini, and you are watching Sandbox News. Go see the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre September 10th. You're gonna love it.
Shout out to Sandbox News. They put out good videos. I've only recently discovered their channel, and honestly, they're fantastic. They're at 458,000 subscribers. Let's get them to 460 this week. I know we can do it here as a military community, so let's get that done. The F-15 is an absolute beast. What a great video with great information. Absolutely loved it. If you've got any recommendations, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be live tomorrow night playing some Verdansk, dropping in with the boys, and also be live on Saturday celebrating the end of the Kickstarter. Check that out. Also check out Chug, 10% off, link down below. Other than that, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.